Thank you very much, Brian. Good afternoon, everyone. Great introduction, so I can skip right on to my next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about our technologies, about Spotlight, obviously, but the goal for me today is to take you on a broader journey. We think that the tools that we're developing offer an exciting vision for the future of mushroom farming, and the most visible piece, of course, is this, but there's much more that meets the eye. So this is a small self-contained unit that has several cameras and depth sensing technology and projectors and a powerful processing unit. It can be used completely autonomously to read a mushroom bed and identify the mushrooms that are ready for harvest. Now, how it knows which ones are ready to harvest is through both training a neural network, but also through a process whereby the harvest manager can create picking instructions and picking programs and define what they would like to pick every day of a flush to lead to the harvesting results that they're seeking. Here you can see a few pictures of Spotlight in action. On the bottom left there on self-driving trolleys. In the middle on old-fashioned wooden trays, and on the right on GTL tilting shelves. Now, this is as close as I've been to being a farmer. I grew up on a farm with sheep and chickens, small farm. That's me having fun with the farm tractor. And I remember my dad waking up very, very early every morning before sunrise and going to take care of the animals. I had to help with that quite frequently. I went on to study engineering, got a degree in electrical engineering, computer vision, and AI, and for the past 25 years I've been working in industrial software, automation, and a lot of tech in startups. I've been leading several startups, so I know the journey. Now, why I'm talking about this and showing you a little bit about my background is I want to draw some parallels between farmers across the board. I think that what I've seen in mushroom farming is a lot of very, very, very hardworking people, getting up extremely early in the morning, solving challenges every single day. A lot of your businesses are family businesses. We see a lot of multi-generational businesses, people working together, different generations, different cultures. Some have evolved to becoming larger scale operations, but still maintain that, I'd say, conservative family business type culture of planning for the long term. A lot of flexibility is required for people working in your farms. Workers are often asked to participate in different tasks, picking, cleaning, repacking, sorting, and so on. I found a lot of people that are very curious, very open to new ideas, but also have a strong no-nonsense kind of attitude. I appreciate that. You're all running tight ships. You don't have excess staff, excess time, so whatever you implement needs to work and require minimal additional attention from you and your teams. And I've met so many extremely friendly and welcoming people. In the previous slide, I was showing pictures of older farms or more traditional ones. So there are also very modern farms with very exciting technologies, with the self-driving trolleys, the GTL tilting shelves, the Christian's drawer system. So there's already a lot of very nice innovation in the industry. It's nice to see. And some farms are choosing to rebuild with the standard, traditional Dutch flat shelves, and that's absolutely fine. Simple, flexible, affordable. Everyone has their ways, and everyone has reasons to do things the way that they feel appropriate for their farm. I've also noticed, sorry about that, that in this industry, a lot of your suppliers are multi-generational companies. So many growers work with very, very long-standing relationships with their suppliers and with their customers as well. So this instills a very strong sense of ethics. Everyone is building long-term relationships, and so the products and services that we deliver as suppliers need to work for many years. This doesn't mean that growers are not open to working with new suppliers. Appreciate that, of course. But as a supplier, I really take note of that and the fact that the relationships we're building have to function for 10, 20, 30 years, and the products that we deliver need to function for longer than that. one of the things that struck me most is how many challenges there are every day, and challenges that need to be solved immediately, not tomorrow, not next week. A lot of things need to be solved within the hour or within 6 hours. Equipment breakdowns, surprises with spawn. I know that there's a heirloom issue at the moment in many farms with the Christmas trees growing out of the beds. So a lot of changes and differences. Every day is different, right? Everything has to be solved very quickly. Every person on the farm holds a key piece of the puzzle to make it all happen. So if someone's missing, it can be a big problem. And people need to be able to step in and solve those issues. So there are a lot of key individuals with a lot of know-how that's very important. And what I've observed is that you have a lot of different ways of capturing data, structuring this information in, I would say, relatively old-fashioned ways. You're still using a lot of paper and Excel and Access databases and so on. And that works, right? It all works for you. But I think that's also an opportunity looking towards the future. There's a lot that can be done to help improve the situation and help find opportunities for advancement. Now, what I've also noticed is that going high-tech is not necessarily the main thing on a lot of growers' minds. They have a lot of other things on their minds. There are constant worries about the long-term viability of the business, the cost of energy, of substrate, of transportation, renovations, renovating old farms or building new ones, the cost of labor, the availability of workers, of course, mushroom diseases. And in the midst of that, you have a lot of pressure to keep doing better, to grow more for less cost, to use new materials, to go maybe peat-free with unclear impact on yields, to increase the quality of your products, the density, the appearance, the packaging, to increase your product mix as well, and to juggle with varying rules and regulations regarding short-term workers. So a lot of things on your mind, a lot of challenges. Technology is not necessarily the first thing you think about, but I think technology can be an important lever for dealing with the increasing complexity of your businesses and of running larger farms. So over the past 6 years that I've been in this industry, I've had the opportunity to visit, I think, nearly 80 or 100 farms by now. And it's been extremely rich experience to notice that, for example, every farm is different. And there are good reasons why every farm is different. There are different building constraints, the reuse of existing structures, as we saw at Mercer, where I think they had dismantled the buildings but kept the slabs and the shelves, as I understand, and then rebuilt around that. Investments, different access to capital. The market dynamics are different as well, different regional customer demand. I see that different countries, the mushrooms look different, right? Different sizes and the presentation. Local habits, also local growing strategies. So new technology needs to fit the old infrastructure. There's no question in my mind about that. You can't just take everything down and pretend that we can build everything new. We need to ease ourselves in with new technology. There are also many ingrained habits, so people have to change as well. And that's also an important challenge to keep in mind and something that we're working on. Many people are impacted by new technology. Now, what the company that I founded 4 years ago, along with 2 Swiss mushroom growers and some Dutch mushroom industry investors, we called MycoSense. And this came out of a number of different things. I'll go a little bit over my journey and what brought me to mushrooms. But we think that through really looking at the industry in depth, we've identified a few ways that we can help growers solve some of the challenges. One is through the use of the spotlight that sees what's growing on your shelves, that helps to boost harvesting speed, helps to pick optimally, pick the larger mushrooms and more harmonization in terms of the sizes. It helps a lot with new picker autonomy. New pickers, typically, I'll show you some case studies. Instead of taking months to train, it's down to days or weeks. But behind the scenes, this is the visible part, but there's the whole iceberg floating underneath, which is software. a very powerful piece of software that we continue building, continue launching new features every week. We call it the Harvest Manager, and it's collecting information, from the harvesting data that's coming from other systems that the growers might have already installed in their farms, but also new information coming from the pickers and from the Spotlight. So we're using this to help optimize forecasting, optimize yields, also help manage teams of pickers. That's, I think, one of the worries that you all have. We also have this software on mobile and as a tablet app, so some of the key information that you need as you're running around your farm is available. The way we see ourselves as MycoSense is a bridge to the future. First step to getting the most out of your existing infrastructure and getting ready for additional automation in the future. With simple, easy to implement technologies, no major infrastructure investments, something you can test, try, and grow piece by piece, little by little, step by step. And you can start learning about the power of big data and increase the value of other automation opportunities that you may have to boost productivity, such as some of you are already implementing in the pack house, the robotics, for example, in the pack house. We created MycoSense out of the conviction that there needs to be a bridge. There needs to be something simple to start with before any further automation can succeed and can be successfully integrated into the farms that you have. As I mentioned, the system that we've developed, the hardware and software, captures better knowledge of what's growing to help you get more, but also to help you get the most out of some of the newer infrastructure builds that some of you already have. So we work in collaboration with some of the big equipment providers. And as an example, we have systems installed on the self-driving trolleys for graze picking, where depending on how many mushrooms are seen by the Spotlight on the bed, it can accelerate or slow down the lorry or the trolley so that you're optimizing the time that your picker has and what they're picking. And we're also working with customers that have the tilting shelves, the drawer system, the blue belts, taking the mushrooms out of the room and integrating that all. We believe in the opportunity to reduce the number of people needed in the farms, possibly with technology, if you want to do that, to go in that direction. For example, packing and logistics, I've seen some really interesting, exciting solutions from some suppliers. I think Viscom is here. In Canada, I saw Arco Solutions in the pack house, quite amazing. And I show down here these standard pack-and-place robots that you see in all other industries that are tried, tested, and proven, and that seem to be extremely reliable and offer opportunities for automation. So we're excited about all that. A sound technology roadmap is not just about replacing people with machines. We see technology as primarily about assisting people, assisting the people that you have and making the people more productive. So putting the people in the right places where people are the most effective, keeping the complexity low. Sometimes implementing overly complex technologies can actually slow you down. And remembering that technology always fails. I'm sorry to say that as a technology provider, but yes, you have to plan for the fact that technologies will have breakdowns. So the more complex, the more breakdowns. And swap in, swap out is always our objective. I'm showing you this interesting packing robot. GTL had a prototype that GTL had built and demonstrated. Very, very interesting design, but very wise decision on their part. I heard that they decided to can it in favor of something much more simple. And that's a testament, I think, to a company that loves innovation, but also tries to really understand the constraints that their customers have and realize that a complex solution, though it might look fancy and beautiful, might not be the right thing for their customers. So the new system that I've seen installed on some farms, taking the mushrooms off the blue belt, is much, much simpler and effective, and obviously has a price tag that's also more interesting, I believe. This is just another example. I got the authorization from Pilsland, from Rud in Auckalnd, southern Germany, to show these pictures and videos. They have these little packing robots in their farm. This is a GTL tilting shelf farm with the blue belts arriving up here in the logistics hall. And the little cube that you see here is the packing robot. The mushrooms arrive and it takes them out of the blue belt and into packaging and weighs every punnet. Super simple, super effective, and the most important aspect that Rud told me was swap in, swap out. Less than 2-minute downtime. If something fails, unplug it, they wheel it away, it's on wheels, put in a new one, and a technician can repair the unit on whenever, not on the weekends. So going back to my journey, stepping back 5 years, how I got into mushrooms, how I discovered button mushroom farming. I've been, as I mentioned, in the tech industry for more than 20 years, and I am on the jury panel for funding startups, and an interesting project came through that was funded by a grant from the Swiss government, and Swiss mushroom farmers were involved in. The objective was to develop a harvesting robot. And with my technical background as well as the experience that I have running businesses, I was asked to help look at the financials, the business sense that this all made, and also the technical challenges. And this forced me to really go deep and try to understand the dynamics of the industry, to meet a lot of customers, and have in-depth discussions with growers. And that's when I started learning about all of the different challenges. And I kept hearing about the challenge of finding experienced pickers, but a lot of the growers I talked to were highly doubtful that a robot was the answer. So the more farms I visited, the more I learned about the different challenges and the different opinions. And I also went through the history of technical innovations and combed through patent databases and found that over the past 40 years, there have been dozens and dozens of attempts at developing grippers and robots for this industry. And I wanted to try and understand why they kept failing. Since 1993, it's hard to go back before that because the internet didn't exist. But if you search the internet since 1993, you find that there have been numerous companies, I think over 12 in the past 10 years, that have developed harvesting robots, whether traveling within the beds or picking from outside the beds or other solutions. And I was interested in understanding why so many of these companies have failed. And I came to the realization, this is just my opinion, but that it's not a question of technical prowess. It's not about AI. The fact that there's AI now doesn't change hardly anything. It's not about new materials science. The fact that there are new flexible materials for grippers and so on. If you look at the history, there have been very innovative materials around for 20 years, and more. It's really about the constraints that are inherent to mushroom farming. So the challenge of picking, extracting the right mushroom from a tightly packed bed, customer-specific demands, so product flexibility. Every day you're picking into, a lot of farms are picking into different punnets for different customers, and you need flexibility. Orders come in during the day, and suddenly things have to change. Varying picking and separation approaches to achieve your harvesting goals. I was surprised to discover that different countries that's done differently. And also every day the surprises you get from your spawn, your casing soil, and the environmental parameters, and the cooling system that's broken down, and so on. Additional challenge of getting the mushrooms out of the room. That challenge itself hasn't been solved yet, right? There are some interesting solutions out there, but most farms still use runners or cart the mushrooms out on the little trolleys. So that's still not solved. And the absence of standardization in terms of infrastructure, processes, products. Finally, my biggest belief is this need for flexibility. So day to day, the harvest planning changes. You have your harvest planning meeting at 6 a.m., then another harvest planning meeting at 9 a.m., then another harvest meeting at 11 a.m. I don't know of any other industry where there are changes every few hours. And all these challenges needing to be solved on a daily basis, to me, means that you need simplicity and flexibility. And I became convinced that we were doing things kind of the wrong way. So what I started thinking is, okay, if you look at self-driving cars, drawing a parallel here, did the car industry develop a robot to drive your car? No. We started by building navigation systems of increasing complexity that would help you as a human drive your car. And the promise of self-driving cars is there. It's going to come probably sometime in the future. But the first step was not putting a robot in the front seat of your car. So there are certain things that need to be in place before you can effectively do that, replace key roles. There's been a huge amount of effort put into figuring out how to physically grab those hard-to-reach mushrooms, right? The separation, these clusters, that mushroom in the middle. How do you go and grab it with a two-fingered prong or with a suction cup or with whatever other implement? The human hand does it extremely well. And what you notice when you watch pickers for hours and hours, and I did that, is that sometimes they use two hands. And that's part of how they do it, right? They have to hold down some mushrooms while they extract the one that's hard to get. And this two-hand approach is interesting, and I think is also key. Here you can see the little dots that the spotlight is putting on the mushrooms that need to be thinned out. And even the bigger mushrooms that are there, pickers sometimes use a second hand to hold down the ones that they don't want to rip out, right? If you're pulling out that middle one, the whole cluster comes out. Sometimes they use the side of their hand to hold things down while they pull something with one of their fingers, but the side of the hand is also important, even if they're not using both hands. So I was observing a lot of that, and meanwhile, this technology company that I was supervising kept talking to me about more prototypes and more prototypes, coming up with a pneumatic gripper with 2 fingers, with 3 fingers. Finally, the team patented a pretty interesting solution with a blade that comes in and cuts the stem and picks up the mushroom with a suction cup to avoid having to have very strong suction, which often marks the mushrooms. Very interesting technical aspects. And the robot, several of those solutions were tried on different beds through a collaboration with GTL, who funded part of this. And the objective was to look at, whatever the picking technology, whatever the gripper, can a real mushroom bed with all the variations that you observe in every flush and every situation, can that be picked through automation? The team produced an extremely detailed report that looked at how expert pickers do and what angles they come in at with every different type of mushroom, white mushrooms, brown mushrooms, the force that they implement, that they put onto the mushrooms, where they apply the force, how they pull them out, and so on. And so I suggested to this team of engineers to take a step back, to say, okay, let's stop for a moment and look at the problem from a higher perspective. Let's build a very low-cost prototype. Taking a picker, taping one of her hands behind her back, and seeing, what can she accomplish with 2 fingers. And 7 degrees of freedom, so, pretty advanced gripping, but she has perfect knowledge of what to pick, and simply a little bit of a handicap with 1 hand and 2 fingers. Also tried 3 fingers. So going through all of these tests with different implements, our conclusion was, in the absolute best of cases, we could extract a maximum of about 55 to 60% of mushrooms from a bed with automation. So only 3 out of 12 harvesting days could benefit from any reduction in the number of pickers, because even if you placed pickers and a robot, the pickers would basically stand around and not do much, wait for the robot to do their picking until they knew what they would need to be picking that the robot couldn't take. So it became quite clear that, the competing method, human picking, sets the bar extremely high, and that even though, picking robot would not necessarily need to be as good as the best picker on your farm, it should at least be better than the worst pickers that you have, even though they have 2 hands. We went through and thought about all of the challenges of building a robot. lot of technical challenges. And again, the startup wanted me to invest my money. So I really needed to determine whether there was potential. And we looked at all of these different technical challenges and said, okay, is there a first step that allows us to validate something and not waste too much money? And for us, the first step was to validate the concept of coordinating harvesting using software and AI, but using pickers to pick, right? So this concept that we implemented with the Spotlight to determine what needs to be picked, when, where, by whom, where it needs to go, and how to optimize yield, and avoid all of the cost of building complicated hardware. In the future, there could be, robots next to humans, potentially, but the first step for us was this, and this is why we created MycoSense with low budget, but trying to achieve a very, very useful first step. So we went back to, the main points, the main concerns expressed by growers, matching supply and demand, staff planning, staff shortages, no time for training, coordinating groups of pickers, early detection of pests and diseases, equipment failures. These, to us, were the real concerns of growers. So we identified low-hanging fruit and said, okay, if we're going to build a business, let's address what our customers are telling us they need addressed. Trying to improve the forecasts with digital scanning of the bed. So the Spotlight, as it moves around the bed, it's scanning, it's learning what's on there. Centralized data collection, your filling forms, all the temperature and humidity and CO2 graphs, having all that information in a system that we can data mine and help, with AI, generate some recommendations. And then putting people where they're needed most, where the humans have an edge. And we think that people are needed most in the picking task. And then automating what's least costly to automate. So robots in the pack house, for example. And our vision has really been to try and build a modular architecture, little pieces that help you step by step. This is an example of the Spotlight, what it sees as a picker is picking, and what it records and what it knows about the clusters and the density and so on the bed. So we don't need to build a machine that moves the scanner around. The picker is moving the scanner around. If it's properly attached to the lorry, the picker is doing their thing, minding their own challenges, and the Spotlight is scanning in the background. So we're creating on the premise that the first step for the industry is to get the work organized, standardize the data capture for data-driven harvesting optimization. Next, thinking about what we need in order to optimize and help you waste less. Pick only what you can sell. You don't need to pick as much as possible if it's just going to sit in the cold room and eventually need to be thrown out. So how do we get your sales plan, your order book, your growth forecasts, logistical constraints, so that all that information feeds in and tells you what you should pick when to be the most efficient possible. Going back to all of this, right? This is what we think as a first step needs to be replaced, optimized. We spent a lot of time observing the activities of all the different people involved in harvest planning. So the harvest manager, every step of the day. And we built the software and the mobile app to help streamline the process and structure it and allow for easier collaboration between the different people in the farm. So they get little notifications when somebody else's task is done. Exploring how pickers are told what to do at every time of day. So the first pass, you're picking this. The second pass, you need to pick this way. The third pass, you need to do this. Okay, this is all nice on a whiteboard, but how do we take it in and digitize this so that we can help optimize it and then use it with technology and with automation? So this is an example of the interface that we've built where the harvest manager creates their picking strategy, creates the picking instructions, groups them together as picking programs that they run every day of the flush, and trying to achieve homogeneous results across your entire farm and across your multiple farms, if you own multiple farms. Also, building the software needed to help get the right pickers in the right place. So if you need to pick a room by 11 a.m., then which pickers need to be sent to that room to achieve that? The faster pickers, the slower pickers. So we're integrating all of that into the software. And looking at what are the existing pieces of software that you have and how do we step by step assist you in transitioning towards new systems. So you can't replace software instantly, right? This is a quick look at our Harvest Manager software, where you see the growing plan and the room check every day with a collaborative aspect where each growing manager can input their numbers, and then there's a comparison, and eventually the spotlight can be used to scan the beds as well, assigning pickers to different rooms, either manually or through automation. The forecasting, helping you ensure that you have the right materials prepared for what you're aiming to harvest each day, and so on. So MycoSense, as I mentioned, we're a small company. We're 8 people based in Switzerland. We spend a lot of time at Valvular Champignon, our main partner and investor in this project. We are in an old wine-producing building, and the spotlights are built in the wine cellar. That's perfectly fine for now. So privately funded by mushroom industry people, no large debt. We don't plan to take any VC or private equity funding. We want to work in the interest of our customers, and we have no pressure to overextend ourselves. We want to really do what needs to be done and not more. Our website has a treasure trove of information about the company and the product, so please visit that. There are also customer case studies. We started shipping in March. There are about 10 farms that are equipped, and we're training and getting up and running 1 or 2 farms or 3 farms each month now. We have customers that have provided performance data. What we can say for one is the spotlight at this stage we think really is a success. The question is how broadly to use it, just with new pickers or with all your pickers or some. And in terms of what customers have to say, main benefits, for example, here, a French company, you can read what's green here, harmonization of size while maintaining picking speed, increased yields with pickers picking the right sizes, and the simplification of handling inexperienced pickers. Dome in Germany, 4 kilo per hour increase with low performance pickers, 3.75 kilo per hour increase for average pickers and experienced pickers. Valdemar says pickers were initially skeptical about the devices, but then positively surprised after starting to use them. And they're less tired at the end of the day. They have fewer decisions to make. In Valvular, we've been using our technology for the past 2 years, and we're deploying spotlights to all of their pickers now, and there's increased performance, and the data-driven decision-making is something that Roland and Irene, the owners, really believe in. This is the performance data from that farm. Here at the bottom, the kind of brownish lines are new pickers that never picked. All of these are new pickers that never picked before. In brown, they were not equipped with spotlights, and in green, the ones that were equipped with spotlights. And from the first month, you see 4 kilos per hour more on the ones equipped with spotlights. So what Roland says is it just pays for itself, right, the technology. Deckers, this was their test, increasing picking speed, standardizing the sizes in the punnets. Pilsland in Germany, the tilting shell facility, training time went down from 3 weeks to just 3 days. They have new pickers every couple of months, so that's important for them, and increased in picking speed and yield. And this is something we've just set up at Champs in Canada with the drawer system. You can see all the mushrooms on this belt, on this disc that are really the right size. So very exciting trials. Conclusions, you can expect picking performance increases and improvements in other ways, but of course there are challenges as well. Positioning the spotlight, attaching it to the lorry. You all have different trolleys, lorries, carts. That has been a challenge, and we work hand in hand with customers to address that, but every farm is different. And we're also working on automatic speed control of the trolleys with Grow Time and with GTL and Embraco. And we're open to working with others as well to accelerate or decelerate the trolleys depending on how many mushrooms are seen and need to be picked. And another benefit, every spotlight has cameras integrated as well. So in the tablet or desktop, you can actually monitor the picking of pickers anywhere on your farm. So you just click on the spotlight and you see what's actually going on, the distribution of mushrooms on the bed, along with statistics with clusters and everything else. But you can see the live view of every picker. We also have lots of other data and metrics that we're collecting and creating all kinds of new graphs. This is just kind of technical looking graphs. So concluding, I'm sorry I'm over time, what we believe the mushroom growers really need is flexibility, modern tools for collaboration between your people, low financial risk, quick payback period, scalability, and simple solutions. And also healthy suppliers that will be around for you in the long run. That's it for today. I know some people already have on their minds how much does this cost, so I had to put something on there. Normally we quote the projects depending on various different aspects, but generally overall we're looking at, we sell 10 by 10 the units, and it's about 45,000 francs, so 77,000 Australian dollars for 10 units, along with the support, the accessories, and everything else to get you going. That's it. Thank you very much.